In fitting with the rest of our garden experiments this year, we decided to try growing potatoes for the first time in a container. We don't have the space to grow them in rows or in the beds that we built for our current garden plan. This way, we could have them in a sunny spot in the backyard, but it would still be protected from our pets. We got the idea from an image we saw online that claimed you could grow 100 pounds of potatoes in a small box. Not knowing anything about growing potatoes, this sounded great to us. We got 4 golden potatoes from the grocery store and allowed them to sprout. We built the box with a bottom and out of cheap wood that was meant for fencing. We made sure that this was untreated and safe for growing. The concept of the box is simple. Each time the potato plant's foliage reaches above the height of the container, add another layer of boards and dirt around the foliage until just the top few leaves are peeking out. The plant will be forced to continue growing taller, and theoretically, it should sprout tubers along the stem that you have just buried. We planted these in January and harvested them in June. We had stopped watering them and doing pest control at the point that we found some articles and videos disputing the claim that potatoes would grow in this manner. The videos I watched of similar experiments ended with a small amount of sad, pest-ridden potatoes at the bottom of the box and nothing but foliage at the top. We finally opened up our box to see what we were working with, and I was pleasantly surprised with the results. I'll show you the harvest next and what we're going to do differently with our fall planting.
Carpenter ant.
Ooh, that's nice. Doesn't look terrible.
Looks like we just bought some potatoes and threw them in here.
Are they even connected or anything, or just coming right out?
They're just kind of popping off. Oh, baby.
You get a couple meals out of this.
Baby potatoes. Nope. That potato came from up here.
Really?
Look, they are growing up there. But this is only a few inches above.
Yeah.
And they always do say to mound it like 6 inches.
Yeah. So all in all, I think we ended up with a pretty decent harvest despite not knowing what we were doing. In total, we ended up with 6 pounds of potatoes, and our largest potato was 8 ounces or half a pound. Now, I did read about indeterminate versus determinate potatoes and how that might have affected the success of our experiment, but I couldn't find anything conclusive on what types of potatoes were considered indeterminate or determinate. We used a regular golden variety from the grocery store that we let sprout and planted directly into the ground. I did see arguments for container growing versus growing them in the ground, and we would like to try growing them in rows and hilling them up in the traditional method, but we just don't really have the space for that. We would have to sacrifice a raised bed in our front garden. I'm not too concerned with crop rotation where we're at. I know it's not recommended to grow potatoes or root crops in the same soil. Because of how healthy our potatoes came out, I'm not too concerned about having disease growing them in the same spot. We did a good job at keeping the soil healthy. We mixed in with our native soil a good potting mix and a lot of our own compost. And after harvesting the potatoes and throwing out the leaves as recommended, we put the dirt back and added even more compost. I was pleasantly surprised at how good our potatoes came out, the size, the appearance, and how high up they were growing. It was a very small tuber, but we had a tuber all the way up to the top of the soil and the top of that stem. So it definitely seems like this concept is working. It might not be the best way to grow potatoes or the most effective, but I think it was a pretty decent harvest. I'd like to try different containers, perhaps growing them in a bag, and again, like I said, growing them in the ground. But for the fall, we took 4 of the potatoes that we harvested. We are letting those sprout, and we are going to plant them on the top of the soil in this box. So the box this time around will be completely built up. The soil will already be there, and we will plant the potatoes at the recommended depth, and we'll see if that will yield us better results.